Hello, and welcome to a special video presentation on establishing paternity. Now, as a new parent, I know you're facing all sorts of new responsibilities and choices, but believe me, none are more important than establishing the role you will play in your child's life. Now, if you are considering marriage now that you have a baby to think about, there are all sorts of good reasons to do so, like the fact that research shows that children with two full-time involved and committed parents usually have better health, are less likely to get involved with drugs or get into other kinds of trouble. They also usually do better in school and are more likely to go on to college and get a higher status job, not to mention having a better relationship with their father. All things all of us want for our children. Now, while deciding to get married may be the best thing you can do for yourselves as a couple and as a family, there is something else that you can do immediately to begin building a healthy relationship with your child, and that is establishing paternity. Now, as unwed parents, keep in mind that the father is not automatically considered the legal father of the child. For your new baby to have a legal father, you will need to establish paternity. This video is designed to help you understand the choices available to you now that you have a baby and answer some questions you may have, like what paternity is, describe the benefits of paternity for your child, show you how easy it is to establish paternity, and what to do if you're still not sure. And we'll also discuss what else you can do to make sure your baby has two parents, a mother and a father, who will always be there for him or her, something all of us want for our children.
Are you want to go home?
One minute, my biggest worry was what I was going to do on Saturday night. And then my girlfriend has a baby, and I got all this pressure on me.
My sister had a kid and moved in with my mom for help, but I don't want to rely on her to raise my child for me.
Well, I just never got around to signing a paternity form. And now because of that, I don't even have the legal right to visit my own son.
Not having my dad around, there was definitely something missing in my life, you know. I had my mom, my sisters, my friends, but there was definitely a part of me missing, you know. I'm not gonna let that happen to my son.
Meet Mark, Janet, and Brian. Like most new parents, they all face the same confusing mixture of joy, fear, and uncertainty that comes with the birth of a new baby. As unmarried parents, they also faced a critical question: how to protect their baby's future. Whether or not you are considering marriage, one thing you can do for your baby right away is to make sure he or she has a legal father by voluntarily establishing your child's paternity, ideally right at the hospital. Paternity is the same thing as legal fatherhood. Establishing paternity, or legal fatherhood, is the process of establishing a legal relationship between a father and his child. When a child is born to married parents, both the father's and mother's names are automatically entered on the child's birth certificate. But in cases when parents are not married, only the mother's name is added to the child's birth certificate until the man has established legal fatherhood, or paternity. The easiest way to do this is for both parents to voluntarily sign a paternity acknowledgement form right at the hospital. Then, if you're considering marriage, you can request information about any premarital advice and counseling services that may be available in your area to help you build a long-lasting and healthy marital relationship.
When Stephanie was born, I was living with my boyfriend, so I just assumed that since we lived together that he would automatically be considered the father. But the truth is, when you have a baby and you're not married, the man is not considered the legal parent, even if you live together.
Mark faced a similar problem. He became a father at the age of 19 with his girlfriend at the time. At 26, he's in danger of never seeing his 7-year-old son again.
Yeah, I mean, we were planning on getting married, but I lost my job and, you know, things just fell apart. We broke up. And because I didn't establish paternity then, now I gotta go to court and get the right to see my own son.
As unmarried parents, both Mark and Janet would have benefited by signing the voluntary paternity acknowledgement form. Why? Because signing the form creates a legal relationship between the father and child. What this does is grant the child the same legal rights as a child born within a marriage. Voluntarily acknowledging paternity is fast, easy, and free, and you don't have to go to court. The benefits are numerous for both parents as well as the child.
You know, when you're young, you don't think about things like health insurance and Social Security benefits. You know, I saw what happened with my mom raising me, and I want to make sure that my son is protected.
Brian is one of thousands of fathers all across the country that voluntarily acknowledges paternity each year. But just how does acknowledging paternity help protect your child? Consider these examples.
My son needed a bone marrow transplant when he was only a year old. And my boyfriend and I, we never got married, but because we signed the paternity form, the doctor was able to get the information from Dave, my ex-boyfriend, on his medical history. Turned out Dave could be the donor, and that saved my son's life.
Even though my mom and I aren't together anymore, I still try to see my daughter Amy as much as I can. Her mom recently lost her job, lost her medical insurance, and she was really worried because Amy has asthma. She needs a lot of medical care. But since I'd signed the paternity form, that made me legally the father, so we were able to get Amy covered under my medical insurance. It's not something that you think about when your baby's first born, but now I'm so glad that I signed it.
5 years after we broke up, my boyfriend was killed. Because he signed a paternity form, our daughter was entitled to his Social Security benefits. And she inherited some money, too.
Now let's face it, no one can predict the future. But doesn't it make sense to protect your child now? Acknowledging paternity means that your child can receive child support, become eligible for coverage under his or her father's medical insurance, receive any Social Security benefits and inheritance rights, as well as having access to medical records. Now, these things may not matter to you now, but they could make a big difference in your child's future. And while you're taking steps to establish paternity, you might also want to consider marriage. If so, there may be services available in your community through your place of worship or local social service agency to help you think through that decision and help prepare you for a long-lasting, healthy marriage.
It was important to me that my son know who his father was and to have Brian's name on the birth certificate. The paternity form did that, and it was quick and easy, and it didn't cost us anything.
Well, I grew up without a dad, so I had some experience in that area, but making sure my son is protected and supported is the most important thing to me. It's a great feeling to look at him and know, that's my son. He's a part of me. There's really no feeling in the world quite like it.
While we were at the hospital, we thought about getting married, but for both of us, you know, who grew up without a dad, it seemed like a difficult decision to make. We weren't sure what it would mean or if we were ready.
Well, I wanted to wait until we had more money, until we knew more about our job situation. But this lady at the hospital was telling us about a class that we could take, you know, to help us decide. Like I said, I really love Lucy and my new son, and I thought it would be great if I at least checked it out. What I learned really surprised me.
Yeah, what really blew our minds was that most couples that don't get married usually break up within 2 years, which meant that our son probably wouldn't have a dad full-time by the time he started preschool.
Yeah, she said over 70% of couples break up, even when they love each other as much as we do. Like I said, my father wasn't there for me, and I plan to be there for my son. I think it made a huge difference in my life, not having him around. Like I said, we love each other and our son. You know, we wanted to show a commitment to each other and our child, so we decided to get married and form a real family. And now, I get to see my son every day.
As you review your options, remember that acknowledging paternity is a key step you can take right away to protect your child's future. Everybody wins. The father gets the reassurance that he is the legal father with all the associated rights. The mother knows that she will have someone there to share in the financial and emotional support needed to raise a child. And the child enjoys the benefits of having two parents, both sharing in the joy and responsibility of raising a healthy and happy child. Now that you've seen the benefits, we'll take a look at how the process of establishing paternity actually works. You will be given the paternity form in the hospital. All hospitals are legally required to offer unwed parents the opportunity to sign a paternity acknowledgement at the time of their child's birth. You will be presented with oral and written informational materials and a voluntary paternity acknowledgement form. When parents sign the form, paternity is legally established, but in order for it to be valid, both parents need to sign. The man will also need to show proof of his identity. Then the form will be notarized or witnessed by another person, such as a hospital representative. Later, the hospital staff will process the form with the State Vital Records Office to make sure the father's name appears on the child's birth certificate. Once the form is signed, either parent has up to 60 days to withdraw the acknowledgement. This is done by submitting a signed rescission form to the State Vital Records Office. After the rescission form is filed, the man is no longer considered the legal father. But keep in mind that if either parent changes their mind after the 60 days were up, they would find it very difficult to convince the court to overturn the paternity acknowledgement. At that stage, it's pretty final.
Well, the first thing I did for my son was sign a paternity form. Then a few weeks later, Lucy and I took a class on marriage, to help us decide if we were ready or not. I guess I had a lot of ideas that weren't quite right. Like if you love someone, you wouldn't argue. Well, wrong. I guess you'd still argue. It's pretty normal.
And I guess since I didn't grow up with a dad in the house either, I also had a lot of weird ideas. But the class helped to paint a real picture of marriage as opposed to the fantasy that I had. I think that all couples that have a baby should take the class, whether they're considering marriage or not.
Yeah.
Like Brian and Lucy, you may decide that marriage is the best option. Whether or not you are considering marriage, you still need to establish paternity. Here are a couple of things to consider. First, signing the voluntary paternity acknowledgement form does not automatically guarantee visitation rights, custody, or child support. For each of these, a separate agreement or court action is required. For most parents, these rights and responsibilities can be agreed upon without going to court. After all, the child is going to need the involvement of both parents for the support and nurturing he or she requires. But remember that by signing the paternity acknowledgement, you create the legal basis for establishing these rights and responsibilities. That's why, if either the mother or man is not entirely sure whom the biological father is, they should not sign paternity papers. Instead, you might want to consider having a genetic test so you can know for sure whether you are the biological father. Genetic tests are a common practice performed in one of two ways, either with a painless Q-tip-like swab inside the mouth of the mom, the dad, and the child, or through a small sample of blood drawn from all three. Unwed parents who are interested in genetic testing should contact their local child support enforcement agency for further information. Of course, if you are receiving or will be applying for public assistance, you will be expected to cooperate with government officials in identifying your child's father and establishing legal paternity.
I'm glad I signed the form. That way my son would know from the very first day he was born that I loved him and I wanted the best for him.
Well, our situation was like that of a lot of other people who are in love but aren't really sure what to do. We didn't have a lot of money for a big wedding, but we knew we wanted to be together. And we also learned in the class that a healthy marriage was the best way to make sure that our son would always have two parents around.
Being a dad every day is so much different than being a drop-in dad. And that's what I wanted for my son. That's why marriage is the best option for us.
As you make your own decision regarding the legal fatherhood of your child and marriage, consider these important points covered in the video. First, fathers do make a difference. Second, every child deserves two full-time parents. Third, acknowledging paternity is fast, easy, and free. Fourth, if you are considering marriage, there may be services available in your area that can help you think through that decision and help you build a strong and healthy marriage. Acknowledging paternity today will help you start building a solid foundation for your child's life, now and in the future, as does marriage. That's the power of two, and it could be the greatest gift you give your child.